Julia Manchester, political reporter at The Hill, radio host Tony Katz with us now. Julia, for all the sort of faux anger that came out of the White House and the promise from the DOJ to appeal this, I can only imagine that there were 8 or 9 Democratic senators who are up for re-election in swing states and a number of Democratic congressmen who were just massively relieved that a Trump federal judge saved them. And now that they won't have to deal with these pictures that are going to come if Title 42 had been lifted.
You know, Leland, we do know that there, behind the scenes of the White House, there was some division on this as to whether to lift Title 42 to go along with that and come up with some sort of a replacement plan or keep it in place, because we know that there could be very negative political ramifications for Democrats running for re-election, like you said. So you have Democrats like Mark Kelly, a border senator in Arizona, or even Senator Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire, who were very vocal about this, urging the Biden administration not to necessarily repeal Title 42, but to maybe think of a replacement scenario sometime down the road. But this is very interesting, I think, ahead of next week's elections. You know, in Texas's 28th congressional district, we have Congressman Henry Cuellar, someone who has been more so conservative on the border. He's a Democratic congressman facing a progressive primary challenger, and he has been one of the vocal opponents of overturning Title 42. So I think the political timeline with all of this really seems to match ultimately.
Yeah, for sure. The Cuellar election is going to be fascinating to watch, and then also for what will be the general election if he ends up winning the primary. Tony, when we poll Americans generically, the border ranks as second, third, fourth, fifth importance. When you talk to Democrats, immigration's pretty far down on the list, 8th, 9th. When you poll Republicans, something like 40% or 50% of Republicans say it is the number one issue facing America, second perhaps only to immigration, second to inflation. At this point, does it kind of really matter what happens at the border politically because these two groups have become so polarized on the issue?
I think it does matter, because when you have more people pouring across the border, people feel that their children are unsafe. So it always is going to matter to them. But on the politics of it, you know, you brought this up a couple of months ago on the show, that keeping Title 42 is a gift to the Biden administration, and they don't really fight that Title 42 is there. And they once again tried to have it removed, and they picked this arbitrary date of when to remove it. And then you have this Trump judge saying no. But I don't argue that this gives the Biden administration a level of reprieve. It's still the story that the Biden administration messed up the border, created a danger at the border, put Border Patrol agents in danger, never mind the children who are taken over by coyotes, never mind kids right here in the United States, regardless of where they came from. So the mess still exists at Joe Biden's doorstep,
the mess
and I don't think that's going to change.
No, you're absolutely right. The mess still exists, but it's not front and center on every channel the way it would be if there were 10 or 15,000 people camped out in Del Rio under a bridge, and then in McAllen under a bridge, and then thousands of people coming across an Eagle Pass, and the Border Patrol becomes overwhelmed. Then you'd have NBC, ABC, and CBS all doing their evening newscasts from there. Julie, in the same way, NBC, CBS, and ABC are covering the baby formula shortage and inflation. Both of those have sort of now permeated beyond just the problem sphere into the mainstream American culture. How worried are Democrats that this just isn't going to get fixed? I'm thinking about Senator Sean Casten, representative of Illinois. Sometimes we do energy policy. Sometimes we do energy politics. This is the latter, energy politics, talking about the price gouging bill simply as political theater. And theater works short term. It does not work long term.
Yeah, this is certainly a worrying point for Democrats up for re-election up and down the ballot, because we know that Democrats are already facing headwinds. There's this historical trend of a sitting president's first term. Normally during their first midterm election, they lose seats. On top of that, you have these crises like inflation, like this baby formula crisis. And I think there's obviously a debate as to whose fault that is. And you're going to see Republicans trying to drive this at the Biden administration and Democrats. And I think what Democrats really really need to do at this point is sort of come up with some kind of message to combat that. And we really haven't seen that yet. I mean, we saw President Biden, I think it was last week or the week before, talk about ultra MAGA, for example, trying to pin this on Republicans, when it comes to inflation. We've seen Democrats at the Senate level talk about this plan Rick Scott released, talking about wanting to raise income taxes or have more Americans pay income taxes. So they're trying to sort of find this message, but they haven't found one that appears to have stuck yet. I think they're also talking about Roe v. Wade, whatever happens with that decision, that could be a message.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, at least from our polling, abortion in terms of issues facing America, both Republicans and Democrats, when you talk about them, it ranks 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, way below crime, immigration, fiscal policy, inflation, on and on and on. Inflation obviously being number one. Tony, to you, this is Representative Delario on the baby formula crisis. Take a listen.
The FDA dragged its feet, and the recall only occurred in February, and that was 4 months. Why 4 months? There's got to be answers to that question from the FDA.
She's the chairwoman of APROPS. To have her calling out the Biden administration, FDA, the commissioner works for the president. I'm wondering if if we're going to start seeing more separation, or if you've started to see more separation from Democrats and the president.
All politics are local. I don't think I'm saying anything that's going to shock anybody who's a part of this conversation right now. Everybody watching at home. How many phone calls do you think the Congresswoman got from constituents? I can't feed my kids. Your politics are inconsequential when people can't feed their kids. And to think that it wasn't a pressing issue, and to push the story as former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki did, we started working on this months ago, started working on this from the beginning. You have empty shelves and parents who didn't know how they were going to feed their children. It wasn't something you didn't think should be handled immediately, pressure put on immediately. That's a massive political miscalculation. Yeah. And what the citizen is asking, right? If you ask Midwest Main Street what they're asking, how do you miss something so massively basic?
Yeah, well, and once you have members of your own party asking that, it answers this. New low for the president's approval rating, 39%. And we didn't even get to talk about gas prices, although that's been going on for a little while. Hey, Julia, Tony, good to see both of you. Thank you. Back in a minute with why social media can't get